Welcome to St. Augustine this evening, the Mike Davis Show, and we have a great Christmas show for you. I know that most of the 904 now is lounging on a beach somewhere, or maybe getting a haircut, or not, Davey. But we're here with you to celebrate Festivus. Today is Festivus Day, so we're airing grievances today at the end of the show. So if you want to hang around for Festivus, did you know it's Festivus Day?
Guys, I'm getting fired.
Why?
It's Festivus.
It's Festivus. That's right. We're airing grievances.
Who's up for the feats of strength? I didn't bring the pole. We just have a tree.
We're going to strip the tree down, Pete. There'll be no limbs left on it. You'll be very happy with how much you hate this tree.
The tree.
Spins too much. There's too many colors flashing behind me. I feel like the police are coming up behind me.
And the lights off of it.
Thank God.
There were lights and there were carousel ornaments all over it, and they took it off.
Yes. We're going to strip all the limbs off, Pete. We're going to leave just one pole there for you for Festivus when you come back.
So many jokes, not going to say.
I know. You leave those alone. It's Christmas time. Be nice. All right, let's get some money made for this show so we can keep doing what we're doing. And we have an amazing guest for you who's receiving an amazing award, which I can't ever remember it happening since I've been here. And as the boys on the morning show call me Father Time, I will let you know that it hasn't happened in St. Augustine in my time. All right, the team at South State Bank, they're a group of bankers you can count on. Their approach to building long-term relationships with their customers is the best in the business. If you're looking for a banking relationship you can depend on, check out South State Bank. They've got 3 locations to serve you here in St. Augustine, one on State Road 16, one on State Road 312, and my favorite one, the branch at the beach, because then I don't have to cross the bridge with all the traffic out there. You can visit their website at southstatebank.com, and they are a member of the FDIC.
They are. All right, we've got Epic. Let's step into the world of support and healing with Epic Behavioral Healthcare. For over 50 years, Epic has been a beacon of hope for our community, providing compassionate care for those touched by substance use or mental health disorders. Whether you're a kid, teen, adult, couple, or family, Epic is here to lend a helping hand. With a range of programs tailored to meet a diverse needs, Epic offers accessible solutions for everyone. From their walk-in clinic to their mobile response team, from inpatient detoxification to outpatient counseling, Epic provides comprehensive care every step of the way. Our services include psychiatric evaluations, medication management, medication-assisted treatment, care coordination, peer support, suicide prevention training, parenting education, and much, much more. The holidays are a stressful time. If you need help, then call Epic. They're right there to help you every step of the way. A to Z offers free estimates and have been serving St. Johns County for over 20 years in the construction industry. A to Z offers painted metal roofs for saltwater area homes with warranties for up to 25 years. They offer shingle roofs with warranties for up to 50 years. They also install tile roofing, cedar shake shingles, designer roofing, and flat roof coverings. Recent job photos with material descriptions can be seen at A to Z Roofing and Waterproofing.com.
All right, at Moultrie Creek Diner and Anastasia Diner, these neighborhood diners are more than just a place to eat. They're where hospitality blooms and friends gather. Bring your own friends or make new ones. The coffee is always hot, the smiles are genuine, and the food tastes like home. Every meal is a chance to make memories, share stories, and create bonds that last a lifetime. It's not just about the food on the plate, but the community that comes together at the table. Come see us at Moultrie Creek Diner and Anastasia Diner. Tell them Andy sent you, and until the dogs lose, you might get a discount if you say go dogs.
Just maybe.
Don't say it the day they lose. It's double price for dinner that day.
mean, you could just give him a hug.
He's not a hugger. He's like Pete.
Give him a hug.
Oh, I wouldn't. You guys are on your own at that. That's Amanda's advice. That's not mine. I didn't say that.
You'd be a hugger?
So it's not often we get to interview somebody that I've known a long time.
Yeah.
Which says I'm really old, not the person we're going to interview. Although she was in college when I was in
Why
middle
did you
school.
do that? Why did you do that?
I just...
You were starting so strong.
I was strong there for a second. But you have to understand, and it's been fun to watch the success of this person for a long time, both on the basketball court and then as a coach, and now as a retired coach receiving honors that they should. And that's Sherri Anthony. Sherri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're glad, and I mean that. You were one of the people I looked up to as a kid, and for people that don't understand basketball, men's, women's basketball, right? there were very few times as a boy basketball player you would look up to a girl basketball player. That's just not the way it was back in the day. My brother Todd and I always looked up to you, loved watching you play point guard at Flagler. You just were so feisty and competitive, and it was just great to watch your spirit out there on the court. So,
well, I appreciate that.
That was awesome. So
appreciate it, and I loved watching you guys run around.
Unsupervised. No, it was awesome. You had to get, cause, I listened to your interview earlier. So Davey and Pete, I finally listened to an entire show. Only because you had Sherri Anthony on did I listen to an entire show. They've been bribing me for years, Sherri, to try to watch the show, and I won't. I know. But it was great. And I did not realize you grew up in Keystone Heights.
Yes.
Well, I thought didn't know where you came from. So it's just, so you were a little kid in Keystone Heights growing up. Your dad decides you're going to be the athlete in the family.
Yep. That's how it worked. I had Linda, my older sister, Pam, my middle sister. Linda was the cheerleader. Pam was the one that went to clubs and hung out with her friends. And I was the designated athlete. Mm-hmm. And Daddy handed me a ball the minute I could walk, I think, and said, we're going after it. So here I am. And I'm proud of the fact that he did that. I'm very grateful to him for that.
So when you were growing up, we talk about boys and girls. Was there girls and boys leagues, or did you just play with the boys all the way through growing up?
You know, we didn't even have a JV team. Yeah. I started my freshman year, and so I was playing with the boys all the time in the neighborhood. We had 2 girls in the neighborhood besides me, and their brothers were my friends, and so we just played all the time in the backyard. You know, somebody have a hoop, and we had one in our house, and then we would sneak up to the gym, and we'd play up there all the time. So then when it came time for tryouts in 9th grade, I came home and told Mom and Dad I made it. They didn't believe me at first because they had never seen me play real organized basketball. And I made it, and they followed me to every game, high school, every game in college. And they made almost everyone when I was coaching at Nease as well.
That is awesome.
It was an awesome time.
Now, did the advice change over the years from your dad? Because I'm a dad, and so there's always advice after the game. Yeah. And I had a dad who always had advice for after the game. So even as you were coaching, did you get advice afterwards?
The funniest part about Mother and Daddy were, you know, Mother was my support. You know, she would pray for me and talk me through things when I was upset about something. And Daddy was, you know, the military, this is what you should do. So we'd go to dinner afterwards, and if we lost, Daddy and I would just talk about what we should do. And Mother would quietly lean over to the waitress and say, I would like, she would order something. Yeah. And then she would eat very quietly because she was hungry. She was over it. You know? Yeah. But Daddy and I, we would discuss it. And he even came over to me one time when I was playing in high school. He never talked to me during the game. He let the coach. And we were playing Flagler Palm Coast. I was a junior. And back then you only had 2-pointers and you had a boys ball. And I was coming up out of the locker room, and Daddy was standing there. And I had maybe 2 points at halftime, and I just wasn't hitting anything. And so Daddy said, what are you going to do about that shot? And I said, I'm going to quit shooting. He said, why? And I said, because I can't throw it in the ocean. And he said, is that your shot? And I said, yes. He said, then shoot it. I had 33 points at the end of the night. Yeah. And I took that advice, and I used it when I was coaching for many a kid. So I really appreciated my dad saying that. And that's the only time he spoke to me during a game. And he let the coach, and I learned that from him too. And I always appreciated that about him. You know, once he knew I'd made the team, he pushed me to my coach and said, she's yours. Yeah. And after the game, we talked, but never during the game.
Yeah, and I got that. I think that's awesome advice. I think so many parents today don't let the kids play. Keith Daniel, who's a great athlete and baseball coach here in St. Johns County, I got to coach with him in Little League, and that was his saying. You know, it's when it's game time, that's the kids' time. You have all the time in the world to talk to them, but you cannot fix their batting swing in the middle of their bat. You can't coach them out in the field. You got to let them play, and then you deal with it later. And I thought that was just such great advice. And if more parents would do that, their kids would actually have more fun playing sports.
And the players, you know, would respect their coaches even more because they know they're not hearing the split advice. Even if it's the same, it's just hard to listen to 2 voices at once.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine who our sons played together, and I was the head coach on a youth team. He was the assistant coach, and our sons played point guard, and his son was in playing point guard at that time, and he started yelling at his son. And I said, he may be your son, but that is my point guard. No one talks to my point guard but me. So if you have something to say that you want me to say to my point guard, you let me know. But otherwise, you wait till he gets in the car.
There you go.
And that was the end of it. He never said anything else the rest of the way. I said, that's my point guard.
There you go.
And we're still great friends today. We laugh about that all the time. I said,
Awesome.
no one talks. You don't talk to my kids that way. Yeah, it's interesting to watch that change in the parenting. So growing up, did you play middle school ball? Did you have middle school ball?
Didn't have it. Like I said, we played in the gym, like what we considered a little league that we had put together, but it was not an organized league. You didn't have AAU. You didn't have any of that, especially in Keystone. So playing with the boys helped my game a lot. Yeah. And I was little. I mean, my ninth grade year I was 5 foot 80 pounds, and when I graduated, I was 90 pounds and 5'4". So I wasn't much bigger.
How many times you walk onto a court, some guy didn't know you? Like in that Keystone neighborhood, like, we're not letting that little girl play. And then you whooped on him.
In fact, that was my nickname. The first article they ever wrote about me was Dynamite Comes in Small Packages. And then my name, when I got to Flagler, was Little Girl. Yeah. Because everybody would say, who is that? And they'd say, oh, that's the little girl from Keystone. Mm-hmm. And that stuck. And that was my nickname for 4 years at Flagler. And I bet every time they said that, you said, I'm going to score more points than you. Made me a little mad.
Yes. So just thank you for motivating me. I got this.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, just
bulletin board.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Now, that was awesome. How'd you get recruited at Flagler?
That's a great story. Stuart Reed, which was, he was an administrator at Flagler, had heard about Lorraine Rossmeyer, which was at Keystone as a senior, and Chris Brokas was a senior. She ended up going to FSU, and he was recruiting Lorraine, and I was the point guard. And in the game, he brought all three of us in the back room, and he didn't know me from anybody. And he pulled us in, and he said, I don't know what grade you're in. And he said, I don't know what your name is, but by the end of this interview, I'll know both. And I said, okay. And so I just sat there and listened to him to talk to them. And then Chris said, I'm going to FSU. And Lorraine said, I'm interested. And then he talked to me, and he said, what grade are you in? I said, ninth grade. He said, I'll be watching you for the next 3 years. And he did. And at the end of it, Lorraine was a senior over here. It was a no-brainer for me. I wanted to play with her again. We were undefeated when I played with her. Mm-hmm. And I got here, and we won a state championship together.
So now, did you win a state title at Keystone too?
Back then, and the funny part of that is we didn't have a state championship in the state of Florida until my junior year. My freshman year, my sophomore year, we were undefeated. My freshman year, we were 16-0. That's as many games as the girls could play.
Because you might get hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you might get hurt.
Yeah. And then the next year, we went to state and lost in the first round. The next year, we went to state and went to the finals and lost. And my senior year, we lost in what they called sectionals, which was the Elite Eight. So I'd never won it in high school. Got to Flagler and won it my first year.
Did you play against any of the players that you lost to along the way?
And the funny part about that is University of Florida didn't recruit me. And I was real upset because I wanted to be a Gator. My dad had been a Gator. So that was my biggest decision. Do I go there, or do I go and play or walk on, or do I go to Flagler? Yeah. And this girl, she had been my nemesis. She played for Hawthorne, Brenda Hutchins, and she got recruited by Florida. Well, we went over there my freshman year from Flagler, and we beat them. And when I went to the line, shook hands, I said, that's why you should have recruited me. And I said that to the coach. And I wasn't trying to be rude or inappropriate, but at the same time, it was like, what you didn't see in me, I just beat her, because she was mine. We were playing against each other once again in college.
And Hawthorne's not that far from Keystone, so I would imagine you played
about 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. And Hawthorne was like 15 minutes, and Gainesville was 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. But it's funny because that did happen, and thank God we won, because then and back then Flagler played big schools. We played FSU in Florida, and when we beat them, it was a big deal, because everybody thought they were the end all. But back then, we were pretty even.
Well, and I would imagine they walked out on the court, looked over, and said, "Oh, who's this little old school that we're getting ready to play?" Yeah,
yeah. And we had shorts were falling off of us, and and we had one uniform and two jerseys and one pair of shorts, and it was totally like we should not have even been there. Yeah,
it was a bad news bearer showing up to play, and without the attitude, and I would never compare Dan Stewart to Walter Matthau, but
but that's another show.
That's another show. That's a whole nother show right there. But I think that's kind of what gives you that drive, that edge. If you're somebody that's been overlooked and you're an athlete and you have a lot of drive, That you mentioned it, bulletin board material. That's what it is. I mean, you're just like, okay, I'll take that.
And when
And
you
I'm gonna
grow
work
up
even
with
harder.
that, you know, like everybody used to walk in the gym and say, golly, they're so tall. They're so tall. I'm thinking, everybody's tall to me.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really bother me.
Yep.
But it's just that edge, you know, from being little all your life, I think.
No, I mean, I was a short kid growing up and didn't really get, I'm still 5'10". I don't consider myself tall, but in a basketball world that you were just fighting against that whole thing, and you'd hear that all the time. And, you know, you'd get out there, we'd be on the outdoor courts and somebody'd be talking like, I'm playing, I'm
Yep.
ready to go. I'll play all night long until I beat you. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you come to Flagler. What was the transition from high school coaching to playing under Dan Stewart?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, well, Dan was totally, you know, Dan was not that much older than us,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so
But he is now. He's much older than us now.
I didn't say that, Dan. But you know, the thing is, and he was, you know, being a man, I'd never had a man coach.
Yep.
I had my dad, you know, as far as off the court kind of thing. But it was tough. He was tough on us. He was tough, and I think that was what we needed. Because we were, and especially with him being friends with some of the kids because he wasn't that much older. You know, it was hard. He had to really be a different kind of guy to us on the court because all of a sudden he's coaching people he had known on school grounds, you know. But we needed that. We needed the toughness. He made us run until we couldn't run anymore. We had kids in the corner of the gym running to trash cans because they were sick. And he was, you know, one more, you know, but it made us a better team. And we never were tired in the fourth quarter or overtime. And that carried a lot of weight at that point.
Yeah.
It really did.
Did you have any problem adjusting to college players when you got to the college level?
I didn't feel like I did. Not, you know, I didn't have the AAU like the kids do now, which helps. But what I did have was playing with the boys.
Yeah.
You know, I played with so many boys and men and, you know, young men, whatever you want to say at that point, that I felt like the girls' game was almost slow. And, you know, and so when Dan pushed us being a guy, I liked that because I felt like that's what I sort of wanted and needed. And when you had the female coaches, you know, you didn't quite get as much of that. And I will tell you this, my first coach ever, Miss Jackson, African-American lady, she was a Lou Gossett Jr. in Officer and Gentleman. She would get right here and tell you what you should do better and different. And, but she was the reason my career started out like it did. She was really tough on us. Yeah. So Dan was sort of like the female version of her. I mean, the male version of her. And that really was, I think that's what made us win the state tournament. I really do.
So I called him today and I said, I just need a story about Sherri Anthony. I don't need anything embarrassing. I don't need anything, but I just need a story. And he thought about it for a few minutes. And he told me that after a few practices, you were a little frustrated. And then you didn't think everybody else was giving it as much as you were going to give it. And that some of the girls were telling you to quit practicing so hard. And you went and talked to him about it. And he then talked to the team, made it very clear that you were the point guard on the team and that everybody had to listen to you. And
that's amazing that he thinks that. I love that story.
That's exactly what he said. He said, you said to him, I don't want them to know that I said anything.
Yeah.
And he said, they won't.
I'm sure I didn't because they were bigger and older.
Yes, they won't. But he said that. And I said, that just shows you her tenacity, right? If you were going to do it, you want to do it 110% and you wanted it done right.
Yeah. And Dan was great about putting me in that situation because it was tough because there were a lot of seniors. Yeah. You know, there were people that had done many more things at that point than I had done. And he did. He gave me he handed the reins over to me and you know, and he believed in me. So that helped a lot. Yeah. He still rod me hard. I mean, he was hard on me, but he also knew my parents were the kind to say, do whatever you need to do to make her better. And so I think that helped.
It had to, because you had an incredibly successful freshman year. You guys won the state title.
State title.
Yeah.
And then went on, and if Lorraine hadn't hurt her ankle, she hurt her ankle after the state tournament. She fell, actually, on the stairs in the punts and twisted her ankle, and so we didn't have our biggest inside scorer for our regional tournament, and that hurt a lot. I mean, she played, but she wasn't the same person, and that hurt a lot. So I still think we'd even gone a step further or two if we'd have had her full tilt.
Yeah.
So your favorite college game, besides the Florida game, where you got to tell the coach, which probably may have been the favorite one.
Yeah.
But your favorite kind of game where you guys came back, just had an amazing second half.
Well,
And
the state tournament, you go back to that. I've got a picture at home that we had a girl that sort of followed us and took really nice pictures. And I've got a picture where I'm going up against a girl from Bethune-Cookman, which was our championship game. We had won against Florida A&M, and I'm going up left-handed, and I have no ups really, but she was guarding me, and she was 6 foot, and she was guarding me, and I've got a left-handed layup going up, and it's going up, and I remember after I shot it, she put on the back of the picture, "You made this," and I just remember thinking that when I saw that picture, that whole game came back to me because no one gave us a prayer. We beat Stetson in the first round. And then we had to play Florida A&M, and we had to play Bethune-Cookman. Nobody gave us a prayer to win any of those.
tough schools.
I mean, physically and athletic and long and lean and fast and verticality. I mean, they had it all. But Dan had some good game plans, the plays. We were very disciplined. We loved each other. We would have done anything to win. And nobody had anything but that agenda at that point. And it was just an incredible games. Those 3 games back to back in Orlando, and that was back when it was FTU instead of UCF. That's where the venue was.
Yeah,
and we had a good time afterwards. It was a fun time.
I am not going to ask any questions about that.
Please don't.
I'm not going to ask any questions. That stays there. So when did you realize you wanted to coach?
Well, in high school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor for whatever reason. I just thought it was a cool thing to do, and of course, you watch shows and you want to help people and all that. And then when I got recruited to Flagler, I had nothing in the field of medicine, And so I started thinking, well, what am I going to want to do, or what would I miss the most? I thought, I can't be away from sports. So that's when I started thinking my best teacher, coach in high school was Miss Jackson. And I loved her, and I really, just revered her. And so I thought, I'm going to really go into this seriously. So I was a PE major, which was one of the majors they had. And then when I graduated, I got the job. And Barry Craig and Hal Stedman, he was the principal. They're the ones that interviewed me and gave me the job at second year of Nease's inception.
Yeah, it's a perfect opportunity because you graduate. Nease is there hadn't been a new high school. There was St. Joe and there was St. Augustine High, and Hastings was still around for a couple more years. That was it in the county.
That was it.
I mean, people look at it now. I mean, we're opening new high schools, it seems like every other year. But back then, you just didn't have that opportunity.
No, and I was blessed to come into such a time. I mean, God has been so good to me about timing and people in my life. But, Barry and Betty Stansel and Pete Peaver and Mike McGurk and Chuck Walker, all of them were from Flagler, and they had been there 1 year because it opened in 1981. And, so I thought, well, I'm not going to have a chance because everything will be given out. And they only hired one female PE teacher at the time, and that was Betty. And Betty and Barry talked about it, and I was subbing. I graduated from Flagler in April, and I subbed the month of May. And he watched me subbing from afar, I guess, and so did Betty. And then he came to me one day after a day of work up there, and he said, Betty needs another person in her office, and she thinks she'd be a good fit. So I had never played volleyball. I was a JV volleyball coach. I was a head basketball coach, and I was JV softball. So I was under Betty, for those 2 sports. And then I had my own basketball team.
Yeah, I rolled up there in 82 when St. Joe played Nease, because Nease didn't have a senior class.
Right. We were 7th through 10th grade.
Yeah, and we're rolled up in there and still were really good. And I looked across at the bench and I'm like, this is like all the Flagler people I know are up here coaching. I didn't know I didn't realize Barry got everybody up there, but yeah.
It was awesome. It was like, and Barry did a really cool thing at one point. He chartered a bus, and we all went to a Florida football game. And he had all the coaches get on the bus, and we had barbecue, and it was a great time. And we said it was like going to 5th year of college, because you were with all your friends and getting to do what you love the most. So I have been very, very blessed on this journey, and that was just the start of the career with that.
Well, and you coached softball at Flagler too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you had a state title there.
Didn't have a state title. We won. We were 41-6. Kennesaw College and Georgia Southwestern were our nemesis. Every time we'd get to that championship game, we could not get past Jolene Morris's pitch, and we couldn't get past some of the other kids' bats on Georgia Southwestern. But we were 41-6, was winning his record until just recently. I think they played a few more games with fast pitch. But I was there for 7 years coaching softball while I was coaching basketball at Nease. It was a crazy time, but it was a lot of fun.
And you had another Keystone Heights native that you recruited that played for you.
Yeah. Sharon Walrath.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was a great pitcher. And I knew that from watching her when she was a little kid and playing in the summer leagues and spring leagues, and then played for the high school. And I'm coaching. I'm like, I know a good pitcher, so I got Sharon to come over here, and she played all 4 years for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually spent a summer in a gym with her. So she would go play basketball. As kids, we'd work at the college and roll over at 5 o'clock to go play for about 2 hours in the gym with Dan Stewart. Mm-hmm. Sharon was playing, and then one of the other players, I can't remember her name, taller center player on the team at the time.
Okay.
And Todd and I being there playing all the time. I just knew him as Sharon. First names. When you're playing in a gym, it's first names.
Yeah.
You don't know what they do for a living. If you know their first name or their nickname and you're good, it's 25 years later, and I'm doing a project with her dad, who's an architect, and we get talking about his daughter that went to Flagler. I'm like, what year was she there? And he gives me the years, and I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I was in high school. Maybe I knew her. And then he tells me Sharon. I'm like, she played basketball? He's like, yeah. And I spent an entire summer, never knew her last name. So
she played both basketball and softball. She was a two-sporter. And,
nice person.
Great
really,
family.
really nice person.
Great family. Great family.
Her dad was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Just a great architect, good guy to work with.
He was.
So when you get the job at Nease and you start coaching girls basketball, did you think you would coach it at Nease for this long?
I didn't put years to it.
Yeah.
But all through my career, when these new schools started popping up, or we were successful a little bit, people would say, where are you going to go next? Where are you going to go next? And I'd say, well, unless it's a college, I can't imagine playing against myself, and I don't see me moving. So I knew if I'd moved out of state or something, I would coach somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But I thought it would be very odd to come back here and coach against what I'd built, and so I never thought I wouldn't do it. And the only reason I was in a position to get out when I did was because of drop, because you can only, be in drop so long, and then you have to give up everything in a public school for a year. So that's what made me really quit coaching at that point. And I knew I still loved it, but at the same time, it was like, I got to make a decision, But I love Nease High School. That's,
Well, and they love you.
Yeah.
Because on January the 4th, they're doing something really special for you.
They are.
They're going to name the court the Sherri Anthony Court.
Yeah.
At Nease High School.
It's hard for me to even hear.
That is an amazing honor and just well deserved. I mean, absolutely well deserved.
It is. It's very hard. It's quite an honor. And every time I hear it, it hits me because, well, first of all, my dad's got a gym named after him because he had it. I had gotten the land and the person to have a gym put in 1966. And never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be in the same situation in a different route. But it means a whole lot. In fact, I have to thank Lisa Kunza, which was the principal at the time, and Charles Gomes was the athletic director. And I was coaching Charles's daughter. And he started looking into my background. And he knew I was coming up on drop and all this stuff. And they talked with the school board and the school district about it. And I guess there's a rule that you can have it done, but you have to be retired in order for it to actually happen. Mm-hmm. So I was at my banquet 2 years ago with his daughter that was a senior. And they said, Coach, we got a gift for you, but we can't give it to you yet. I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, we went to the school district and we've asked them to name the floor after you, but it can't happen until you retire. So that was two years ago.
Yep.
And so I've sort of known it was coming, but I didn't, have the opportunity to do anything with it besides just know it. But it's such an honor. And Tim Forson being the superintendent and the school board supporting them to allow me to have it done is just incredible. And I'm very grateful.
And you've been there, you were there 25 years.
No, I was there 39
years. Okay.
I was I was a teacher for 42.
Okay.
But the 3 years I had off was when I was coaching basketball at Flagler as an interim coach. And then 1 year I coached biddy basketball with a younger group. And the rest of the time was Nease.
So the reason I got the 25 and the 30 is I stole your bio from Flagler College when they inducted you into their Hall of Fame, which was at the 25 years. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
you're right.
You got in there earlier, so
yes,
that's
you're
awesome.
Right.
Yes.
And that was a great honor too. Flagler's been very good to me with that. That's why the 25 years.
Are you still the a record holder for assists at Flagler?
You know, I think I'm second place now, but you know what I say about that to them?
They play a lot more games.
Well, they play a lot more games, and no one did that with a boys' ball.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I had a boys' ball back then. We laugh about that. And, you know, point-wise, they say, how many points do you have? And I said, well, if I'd had a 3-point shot back then, I'd probably had a lot more points, but I only had the 2 points.
Well, I was thinking of as I interviewed you playing back in those days, and nobody shot the ball from any distance. And if you took a shot that was a 20 or 20-foot plus shot where the 3-point line is now, most of the time, Dan Stewart would have subbed you before the ball was in or had hit the board, right? He'd have had another player in there and you'd have been out on the bench. What are you doing shooting from out there? You worked the ball around the post. You worked on the big players. You got these short shots. It was a completely different game than what's played today with the three.
And we pressed a lot, so you got a lot of layups out of it. And, you know, and my only, what I would consider my 3-point shot at the time was the top of the key. Because a lot of times on ball reversal, I would have an open look, and he'd let me do that. But that was an easy rebound if we missed, you know. But the baseline corner shot, nobody was to shoot that, because if you missed, it was you're going the other direction, you know, and it was an air ball or something. But he didn't give me the range to do the corner shot, but I had the top of the key. I could hit that shot. Yeah,
I watch how basketball is played today, and it's just such a different game because of the 3-point shot, and when that all changed, and I remember. I think it was after John Knox was playing at Trinity, and that kid could shoot from anywhere. I mean, he came across half court, and he was, to me, kind of a pre-version of what Steph Curry became in the NBA. He just had this incredible range for a local kid. You just had never seen that before.
And moving without the ball to set himself up.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times people don't know how to do that. They have to have the offense set up to do that. And some people, and Steph Curry is a master at it. He just knows when to move, when to cut, and that's the kind of player he was. You know, it made a big difference.
Yes. Yeah. It was just that it was an amazing. I was at a game when St. Joe beat them because of a technical at the end of the game. So he hits a 3 with about a second left, and the center for Trinity slams the ball on the ground. And already been warned, don't touch the ball, like 2 minutes before. And John Allgreen goes down and knocks down 2 free throws and beats him.
Oh my God.
It was the craziest. And even though I think Knox still had one more shot at it from like 75 feet, and you're like, he still might make that. I mean,
but John Allgreen probably took that ball home and put it in.
I'm sure he's got the ball somewhere. He's got the ball somewhere. Yeah. He grew up in the neighborhood near us. So he was about a block.
Coaching I coached against him. He was coaching at St. Elsie High for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I coached against John.
Yeah. Good. I remember all of a sudden one day there's this neighborhood kid hanging out with my brother Rhett, and every time he'd show up, he'd have the Cubs hat on. And hence the name Cubby. I mean, the old kids know him as Cubby. He'll walk somewhere.
I remember hearing him being called that all the time.
Yeah, all of the time. So who was your big rival at Nease? Bowles, or did you have somebody else as a big rival?
Bowles was in the very beginning when we were a smaller school.
Yep.
But, you know, it was Bartram at one point, you know, when they first came on, because they took some of our kids.
Yep.
So that was hard, because I coached some of them, now I'm coaching against them. It was Bartram. You know, in the earlier days, it was probably some of the, you know, St. Augustine High, of course, just because it was a St. Johns County rivalry, just like Bartram was. But St. Augustine was always saying, we're the high school. And Nease took offense to that, because we're like, well, we're the newest high school, you know. But so we had a big rivalry with them. But I would mostly say it was probably Bartram with the newer schools when they first started up.
So you have one state title. Kelly Stevenson, which we're going to try to get her on the show later. She's out of town now because I want to have her back. But what was that year like?
Oh my gosh. You know, I had the best, most disciplined team that year, where I had 2 6-foot posts, really 3. One was like 5'11", 6-foot posts, and then I had the true point guard. I had a 3-point shooter in Katie Wilkins. You know, I mean, we just had exactly what you needed in a starting 5, and your 6th and 7th is exactly what you need off the bench. The other kids would have probably started for anybody else, but they didn't play much for us because just the nature of the year. But those kids would have run through a wall for me. They loved each other. They worked hard, good shooters. But nobody gave us a prayer against Boca Ciega and Pensacola, Washington. I mean, it was a bunch of athletes walking in the door, and you looked at us, and we were, you know, we looked like we were just, like you said, the Bad News Bears. We didn't look like we walked around looking up, you know, that kind of thing. And but we took care of business. And it was 2 totally different kind of games. First game, we won 44-40. Total defensive effort, you know, everybody playing good. And the next day we won 72-61.
Did you play those in Lakeland or were those in
That was in
Tallahassee?
Lakeland.
Lakeland, okay.
It was in Lakeland. And Kelly was my point guard, and, you know, she was very quiet and reserved back then. She's very talkative now as a coach, but she had 3 brothers. So, you know, she was used to playing against the boys, and so she knew what it was going to take to win that kind of game, and she had ice in her veins. I mean, she was 5A Player of the Year that year. She was named MVP of the tournament, 5A Player of the Year, and I got Coach of the Year, and we won the Jasper Award, which back then, I don't know if you knew what the Jasper Award is, but it was like getting the ESPY for the state of Florida, and we all got that as a team, and that was just an incredible moment. And but, you know, it was just everything, and you know that with Super Bowls and everything else, everything has to work. You can't have one bad moment. You can't have one bad hair day. I mean, everything really does have to work right to win that ultimate game. Because I've been there 2 other times, and I've gotten there and won it and lost in the first round. I've gotten there and lost it in the championship. And it could have gone either way within a point.
It's a very, people that aren't in sports or haven't played a lot, it's very difficult to get to that level. But then to get over those last 2 humps is incredibly hard. And it does take a lot of that. And if you have one injury, you can have a player that never misses a free throw and misses 3 free throws. I mean, it's those little things like that you're like, well, I'm not going to have to worry about this. And then all of a sudden that part of
factor in the referees. Factor in the referees.
We do not have enough shows for that. Exactly. We do not have enough shows for that.
God love them. I've had more good than not. But at the same time, you do have to factor in.
Yeah.
You've got 3 people out there watching your kids, and they're whistle happy sometimes, and sometimes they don't exhale enough. You know, it's like you don't know what you're going to get. So you're always having to be concerned about that, you know. So we were very fortunate in that game because that 40-44 game could have gone either way easily. Yeah.
Did little Kenny ref some of your games at the college?
Oh my gosh, yes. He had the glasses.
Yes.
I remember Kenny. Kenny, what was his last name?
I'm trying to remember that right now, and I cannot think of Kenny's last name.
It was like you said, well, first name's all that mattered. We were all like Cher and Madonna. You know?
That's it. It's just one name. If you knew the first name.
Yeah, little Kenny.
Kenny.
He tried to umpire some games. He couldn't hardly see over I had a catcher named Anna Off, and she was a big girl. He could hardly see over.
She was 4'2". He couldn't see over.
God bless him, though. He was a great supporter of mine. He'd come and watch me play, watch me coach. But he was a good guy. He was a fun guy.
There's a great story one night, and this is years before I got into the City League, but somebody was giving him a hard time, and he'd had enough of it. So he turned off the lights and went running out of the Catalina's gym, jumped up, had his feet hit the crash bar on the sign on the door, threw the door open, and out he went. And that was the end of the night for everybody. He'd had enough. He wasn't going to take any more.
I would have liked to have seen that.
I would love to. I was like, when I hear the story, I'm like, there's no way. This has to be made up. And they're like, no, I saw it. I was there.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
He's had enough.
He was like a fixture. If you didn't have him reffing a game back in the 70s or 80s, because I don't think there was that many refs around.
Him and Eddie Vickers. Eddie Vickers was the other one.
Yep.
And Eddie Vickers was always at the ball fields down there by where Barnacle Bills used to be at the city fields. And if you didn't see one of the other them, you didn't have a good crew.
Yeah.
You had the bottom of the barrel if you didn't have one of those guys.
Yes. Well, and then I think you're talking about coach refs. We'll talk just a little bit. But there are games you walk in and you look at the crew and you'll be like, oh man, this is going to be this kind of game.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah. And you know, it's funny because I got an award one year, and I think it was I know when it was because my father had just passed away. It was 1995. And the referees gave me Coach of the Year award from what they had seen.
Yeah.
And so I went to their banquet, and they'd asked me to come, and I didn't even know what was going on. And my mom was with me. First time she'd been out of the house since my dad had passed. And I had a friend with me. And so my mom was just saying, this has got to be big or good because, referee's having you here. And I said, yeah. So she said, well, I'm going to run to the restroom, and I'll be right back. While she was in the restroom, they gave me the award, took the picture, and I was back at the table. And she came out, and she's like, what? And I said, yeah, they called me up right after you left. And so she missed the whole thing, but we stayed afterwards and talked with them, and they just said, we've seen you hot-headed, but then you pulled back right at the right time, or we've seen you, coaxing kids and talking to kids and taking referees that were on the ledge and bringing them down and vice versa, and so that was a huge honor to me because I knew they were not, feeling like I felt like they were on my side a lot, and so that was a really nice honor.
So do you miss it? Have you missed it this year?
Well, this is an interesting thing that you say that because I retired in June, and at my retirement party, Kelly Stevenson was talking about me. I've had her since she was 5, and she was talking about me, and she said, I've been trying for years to get her to come coach with me. And she said, I'm not going to stop now. So when the retirement party was over the summer, she said, Coach, she goes, I've got a pretty good team. I really feel like, we could get together and win a championship together. Wouldn't that be cool if we won it that way? And that would be pretty cool. So I didn't say anything for sure until about mid-fall. And then I thought, you know what? Why am I going to pass this up? Because the rules are that I can help with private school, but I can't help with public school first year out of the drop. So I thought, maybe this is God's way of saying you can still do this. Yeah. And it's been a blast. We are winning. We're playing well. The team's doing well. I'm loving it. Kelly's loving it. And
what's the switch from the role from being the head coach to being the assistant
she loves it. She gets to tell me what what my role is. It's a great time. We have a lot of fun together. But the first day in the gym, I'm like, you want me to go get the balls? What do you want me to do? But it's been a lot of fun. But it's the biggest thrill to me is to see Kelly and her development, not only as a coach, but as a person. And then the way she comes across to her kids, the love she has for them, but yet she's tough on them. And it's showing through their play right now. But her personality is so great. And they love her up there. She's been up there for years now. She's like working with the AD as well as an AD. And then she's coaching basketball. And she's just been really a big success. So I love watching her, do her thing because I see a lot of what she learned. And then there's a lot of new she learned, since she left Nease because she played at Florida.
Now, have you had to play Nease yet this year?
No, and we hadn't played in a long time together. But when I knew I wasn't coaching any longer, the other coach, did the scheduling. And he did schedule bowls at Bowls this year. So I will be playing against Nease in January as an assistant coach. And that will be strange, I'm sure, because
you can have like a Nease t-shirt on underneath the Bowls shirt.
I'll probably have green and gold underwear or something. Yeah, because those kids are the ones, I had up until this year. So, I had them, and I love those kids to death. I love their parents. They're great players, great kids. And so that'll be a tough day.
Well, the thing for me, John Allgreen was coaching at CPS, and so some of my kids are going there. And so I said, he's all by himself on the bench. I said, hey, you want some help on the bench? Yeah, sure. And I had coached them through the Y leagues and stuff like that. And it was such a humbling experience for me because here I am, I'm running this construction company. I'm coaching all these other teams, and my biggest job and the most pressure I had was when John called a timeout, I had to make sure I had the clipboard ready for him, right? And it's like, if I miss the clipboard, then we lose the whole timeout, right? And it's just, and I told him later at the end of the season, I said, that's the most pressure I had sitting next to you, was making sure I didn't screw up the...
Well, and it's funny because my assistant coach for over 40 years has been Bernie Blue, and I love the man to death. He's been a godsend to me as a friend as well as a colleague, but I told Kelly when I first started, I said, if I can do half the job for you that Bernie did for me all those years, I'll have done something. But it's funny about the referees. The first time the referees saw me sitting in orange and blue on the bench, because I don't usually sit down when I coach. And so you have to sit down as the assistant coach. So like referee says, I'm watching you. He said, if you get up, he said, I'm calling it technical. And Kelly said, we're going to have to get a tether or a seatbelt or something, because it's so hard to do that. But, the referees are having a good time with it because they're like, you two together? Are you kidding me? So we've had a lot of fun with that too. But the team is doing really well. We've only lost a couple of games and we just won in the Battle of the Island up in Fleming Island, won 3 games, beat Ribault in the championship. So
that's never an easy win.
No.
Ribault's tough.
And the first time we played them, we beat them. It was just a regular season game, but it was the first game of the season. You didn't know how it was going to pan out. And was it just nervousness or whatever? But then we won it in a championship the other day convincingly. So that was a real deal, and it felt real. So I think that was a good testament to how the kids are playing.
What do you see as the biggest change in the kids in coaching?
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
Phone.
it's just,
Phone, social media, NIL, all of that. It's just, I think my biggest concern over the newness of all of this with the colleges and even the pros, that's trickling down, that high school is just not even going to exist anymore. It's going to be AAU, or it's going to be, getting paid, or you're getting recruited over here, and there's no rules, regulations, and the days of the rivalry is not going to be there anymore because people are flipping and flopping so much. Even in colleges, they're doing that.
Well, the first weekend, Bob Ascara had his son BJ and my son Reese and a bunch of kids from. So we go down to Orlando. We're playing in a tournament. We're sitting next to some parents, and we're ragtag St. Augustine. We have jerseys, but nothing else matches, right? And this team walks out on the court where everything is matching. And we sat there, the parents said, well, you guys seem like you play a lot of tournaments. Oh, yeah. How many weekends a year do you say you're playing tournaments? Probably 40, 42 weekends a year. And which is basically every weekend other than the holiday weekends and including some of those.
Sure.
And, I looked at our parents and said, we're not going to do well this game. And our kids we're never playing 40 tournaments a year. And those kids in a month are playing more than we ever played before you got to high school.
Well, and the sad part about it too is that, and I started seeing this as AAU started developing, is that when kids lose games, they're like, well, we'll just do it next weekend. We'll just get next weekend. High school, you can't say that. Once you get into the playoffs, you don't win, you go home. You're not going to the next weekend.
Yeah.
So to get that mindset to change and to be more about in the moment and the old school try and the rivalry, that's what I don't want to see happen to high schools, is to lose that. And it's fighting to stay that way.
You're going to come back. You're going to bring Kelly with you when you come back.
Okay.
We may have to wait until the end of the season because you guys are doing so well. There may be a whole nother story at the end of the season when you come back on the show. But before we leave, Mondays, we talked about, we do 5 questions. So we Amanda and I have a few questions. They're just fun questions. Not as hard as taking any Dan Stewart test in college. Much easier than that. So fire away.
All right. I'll start out with an easy transition. What is your favorite non-game basketball memory?
You gonna go first?
Mine? Man, I will tell you, watching Knox play at St. Joe, and that game was a great game. I've had some other memories. I went down and saw St. Joe lose in the championship in '77. I was just a younger kid when they lost in Lakeland. So there's been a lot, but that one was a fun game to watch because St. Joe came out on the upper end of it. And then my own boys, we had some big wins, and my daughter even had some big wins at St. Joe. So all of those were fun. It's fun watching whenever you're not involved in it, and you can just kind of enjoy the game.
I'd say we took trips to Disney or to Tampa. We'd take trips at Christmas. And we went down there, and we had won a game that day, but then we got to the park, and all the kids were like, "Oh, let's just go. We're done," because they all had been. Well, I had one player that hadn't been, and she was eating a funnel cake, and she was just looking. She goes, "Coach, this is like the best day of my life."
Awesome.
And so I looked at Bernie and I said, "We did a good thing here."
Yeah.
That was way beyond basketball at that point. So that was an aha moment for me.
Yeah.
And you have that a lot of times. In high school, especially, these kids they're exposed to a lot of things they're not exposed to on a youth level, and you're traveling, and some of them don't ever get those opportunities.
That's exactly
and
right.
it's really great to be able to share that and show them, hey, there's more to just basketball than just basketball. You can go do other things as well.
All right. So I was a basketball cheerleader as a kid, and in college, we didn't have a cheer squad. I went to a small private college. So I was on like the dance team, and we performed at the basketball games. So I was friends with a lot of the basketball players. And one of my really good friends in college, he was 6'9". He ended up playing pro ball in Australia after college. And so he was over there like, well, I can dance. I can do what you do, but you can't do this. And he palms a basketball. And he kind of throws it at me, and I slammed it in my hand and I palmed it in front of him. And he was like, and now I'm buying you a drink. So that's my favorite non-game basketball memory.
You showed him.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got next?
All right, next one. You've mentioned your faith a little bit. So do you attend Christmas services? And if you do, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
I usually Christmas Eve. Because we have a big family, and so we will do Christmas Eve service, and then we do a huge family dinner. And then it's a lot of times it's other friends and family that are around. We have a couple of friends this year whose kids are out of town or something, like, just come on over, right? We'll just have dinner together, and it's all about that kind of family experience at Christmas time. So so usually Christmas Eve, just because of that. When the kids were little, with 4 kids, you'd spend all day long just playing with them and doing that kind of stuff on Christmas Day.
Yeah. I'm mostly a Christmas Eve service person. During the year we don't mention in 2020, I produce the live stream at our church's service. And so that was my first Christmas morning service because like we were shut down for so long and so many people couldn't come in. So we streamed Christmas Day, and it was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be here, it's going to be my whole family and we're all going to be in Christmas pajamas. And so that's now become the thing at our church is that if you come Christmas Day, it's a pajama service if you have kids, and the kids can bring a toy and get a blessing. So I'm toying with the idea of doing Christmas Day. It's hard though, pulling those kids away from the toys. So
I know.
We'll see how it goes.
Well, Mama's Christmas is Christmas Eve now, but when we were kids, we lived in the church because my dad was a deacon and my mom was a Sunday school teacher. So we felt like every day was a church day. Where when it was open, we went. So, but now I would definitely say Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Right. I think you had it worse than I had at Catholic education. I had religion in every single class. But you had it all. You had it even when you went home for dinner.
In Keystone, you couldn't get away with anything. Everybody knew everybody.
Yes. Yep.
So speaking of not getting away with anything, sober Christmas, or are you drinking on Christmas? And if you're drinking, what are you drinking?
You know me, if I'm drinking, I'm usually drinking bourbon, but I'm not usually not on Christmas.
Yeah.
I might have one or so the night before, but I'm usually on cleanup duty.
Yeah.
And so I would prefer to get everything cleaned up and done. Otherwise I get in trouble for not being on cleanup duty.
You're cleaning sober?
Yes. I'm cleaning sober.
Sober cleaning at David's house.
Yes.
I'm a drunken cleaner myself. So I'm a mimosa girl on Christmas. I'm drinking mimosas. We're eating all day and we're drinking mimosas.
I don't drink, so I won't be drinking, but I've always been the designated driver, and Dan knows that from my past as well. But I'm not a drinker, but at the same time, I will always be there for my friends that they need somebody to assist them. I'm always there.
All right.
I may have something for you. I'll tell you.
I was just making crepes at my house because I'm on crepe duty. I make the crepes and then my mom stuffs them. And our traditional Christmas dinner is a French crepe recipe that we just all love, but it's a lot of work. And so we only do it at Christmas. So what is your traditional Christmas dinner?
Ours has always been stuffed shells. Now, I am not a spinach guy. And so Darcy had been making these stuffed shells for years, and the whole family, my family, her family would come up, our kids were all little, and we'd go to church together, and then we'd come back and she'd put these shells in and cook them. And I'm watching her make them one year, and I'm like, what is that green stuff you're putting in? She said, it's spinach. I said, is that new? You're putting spinach? She says, I've been putting spinach in these ever since you've been eating them. I just never told you spinach was in them so you would eat them. But that's our traditional kind of go-to. And then we'll do a bunch of apps and stuff as well. So something easy, because usually when you come back from church, it's got to be ready where you can throw it in the oven and go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is a hilarious question because my sister says that my IQ totally drops out when I walk into a kitchen. So
That's why I'm on crepes and nothing else.
I bring the honey baked ham and the rolls. I'm that person. And my sister.
They trust you with rolls?
Oh,
you don't know how important that is.
You don't even know about that. I had to go to a Jiffy store I say a Jiffy store. 7-Eleven store, Kangaroo, whatever, and I had to just buy whatever they had, and they were hot dog rolls. It was awful. But yeah, my
Were you on
sister,
rolls the next year?
Oh yeah, and they told me, do not bring those back. It was great. So I'm not that person. My sister does the squash casserole. We do turkey. My nephews, they're great at cooking. My nieces are not as good as they are, but they do the macaroni salad, the green bean casserole. Everybody brings their own thing, but mine is just honey baked ham, and I are best of friends.
My mom said she's the 12th of 13 kids. And by the time my grandmother got to teach her how to cook, was here's the can opener, here's the pot, here's the stove. I'm not
Do it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you a candy cane person? And if so, peppermint candy canes or fruity candy canes?
I'm not a candy cane person.
No?
You probably love these things because you and I are like diametrically opposed on candies. No.
Our biggest division is seasonal candies.
Oh,
That's our biggest
God.
division.
Yeah, just give me the green and red M&Ms and I'm happy. I'm happy with those. I'm good with that.
I am totally with you on that.
Yeah, just give me the green and red M&Ms, give that, and I'm happy after that.
Peppermint gives me a headache, so I'm a fruity candy cane person. But as I've gotten older, I'm less into candy canes.
I've never.
But there's like cherry flavored candy canes, and so my mom would always have to get peppermint for my brother and then cherry for me.
They always got stuck to your teeth. It was like when you're done with candy, you don't want to have to pick the candy out of your teeth. Yeah, it's like
it's a reminder to floss.
No, it just was not. It just was not a
Valencia
good
Dental
thing.
would be very
Valencia Dental would be very happy to have us involved in that.
All right,
and
those
yes.
are my 5 questions. If you have any you want to add.
Well, the only, well, we got a minute, but the only other question, you've talked a bunch in the interview with Pete and Davey about your faith and a bunch tonight. So I'm assuming all of this comes from your mom and your dad.
Yes, my mother was the greatest Christian prayer warrior you'd ever meet. And I say that not because she was my mother, but because everybody felt that way about her, you know. My dad was military, but he was also the head of the household, and we were Baptist, and there was a way to do things and a way not to do things. So I grew up with that background, and my friends were going to church with me, you know, the ones we would hang around. And then my coaches were the same way. We did pray before games, you know, and I just felt like God always had my back, you know, and I never... My mother would always say to me, you know, just look to your faith, you know, when things get crazy, either on the court or off the court. And to the moment that she passed, my mother's faith was instilled in me. And that's, I said, my greatest legacy is not the basketball court, it's to be more like my mother. Because she was awesome. And her faith was what my father looked up to, even though he was the head of the household. And that's an incredible home to live in, and a lot of kids don't have that. So I hope that through being around me, they've seen a little bit of my mother in them and me, and then they've gone on and done something else good with it. But being my size, I never got hurt. That was my mother's prayers. Yeah. You know, and but you know, God's been good for my career. Meeting you all, you know, this opportunity today. How does that happen, Davey? You know, Pete. Things happen.
We know how Davey and Pete happen. We don't need to go into that. I don't need to
throw their names in there.
Yeah.
But I just hope that everybody I know and the sound of my voice can come to January 4th because everybody's been a part of this journey. It's not my journey. It's been my journey with everybody else. So I hope that they'll be able to come to that because it'd be a fun time.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, and I know Pete and Davey will as well. But we'll be on. We're this week and next week are on the air, so we'll keep plugging that as well and letting people know. Make a few phone calls around because I know there's a lot of. We're kind of the old school basketball enthusiasts, and I hope a lot of those folks show up for you on the 4th because you deserve
It'll
the
be family,
recognition.
be my extended family. But thank you all once again for this opportunity. I really do appreciate it. I love the show.
Yeah.
You're awesome. And a chance for me to say some things to you I've never had an opportunity to say to you before. But
They were
really,
all nice.
They were. Amanda's
from that
shocked.
unfortunate
Amanda's
old
shocked.
Well, you brought Dan into it, so I don't know. Dan's probably listening.
No, well, I have whole stories on Dan too. So you and I can trade stories on that. But no, just great. I really have admired you for a long time as a player and then as a coach, and it was always kind of fun to watch you succeed. I'm very happy for all the recognition you got. We didn't even talk about being inducted in the National High School National Hall of Fame, and you have Flagler's Hall of Fame, and now a court named after you. That's just awesome and amazing. So congratulations on all of that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. It's nice meeting you, Amanda.
Yeah.
I've known Mike, but I really do appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. She's much better than me. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. We will not be here tomorrow night because it's Christmas Eve, and I'll be at service and dinner, and then we're going to take Christmas off. But we will be back Thursday with the Bollocks boys. We'll have some trivia. And thankfully, the election's over, so the trivia questions are a whole lot more fun right now. All right. We'll see you guys. Have a Merry Christmas.